Well, good morning, everyone. Not bad for a rainy day. If we haven't met, I'm the Reverend Jennifer Brower, and on behalf of my colleagues on the ministry team, the Reverend Ned White, who is here with us this morning, and the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore, who is on sabbatical until June, it is my privilege to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock and to our Sunday morning service. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, in worship, we lift up matters of ultimate worth, meaning, love, justice, truth, divinity, and we reflect upon experiences of significance in our lives: life, death, transition, birth, awe. We believe that our task is to encourage one another in our individual spiritual growth so that we might help what is good in this world flourish and thrive. May each of you who've crossed our threshold this morning feel yourself warmly received and encouraged in your spiritual growth. If you're a newcomer or are visiting with us today, know that we're very glad that you're here. If you'd like more information about Unitarian Universalism or this congregation and our many ministries and programs, we invite you to complete one of the visitor information cards, which are located in the pew rack just ahead of you. That card can be turned in as the offering plates are passed around. It can be placed in the plate, or it can be turned in at the welcome table, which is out in the lobby near the front doors. Immediately after this morning's service, we'll reconvene in the social hall, which is just across the lobby, for coffee and conversation, a little fellowship, and lunch at our UU Cafe. Lunch is offered for a very modest price. We invite you to stick around and have lunch with us. If you are joining us for the first time today, we hope that you'll stay for lunch and allow us to treat you to lunch. Just stop by that welcome table by the front door and receive your guest ticket. Friends, before we enter into worship proper, we have a few announcements to share with you. I invite you to take a look at your order of service. There's always so much good stuff there. I'm not going to read it all to you. We'd be here a really, really long time, and we already started 7 minutes late, so we will not delay. Exactly. And I will take blame for that. I am not feeling 100%, I'll be perfectly honest, so I will take blame for our 7 minutes. There are a whole host of announcements about our congregational life in the days and week ahead, a calendar at the end of that as well. We hope that you'll take a close look at all of those offerings and attend those which pique your interest, and be in touch with us about things that may raise questions for you that you're not sure what they're about or whether they're for you. Do get in touch with us. We'd be happy to guide you in choosing your program life. Today we are sending Colin and Latifa Woodhouse off to Greece. They are going back to Greece. Their program, Shared Humanity, doing good work in the world, continues its good work in the world, and they are off tomorrow. We wish you every blessing. Shelley Turtletaub, we have a memorial service coming up for Lillian Strassman's beloved Shelley Turtletaub, which will be held next Sunday at 1:30 here in the sanctuary. We hope that all of you will be present to extend care to Lillian and Shelley's family and to celebrate Shelley's long and rich and interesting life. That is next Sunday at 1:30. Next Sunday morning, our women's group will be leading worship, so we hope that you'll start the day with them, stay through lunch, and be present for that important celebration of life. If you are here with a child today, I don't see any wee tinies in the room this morning. If they're so tiny that I can't see them, let me know. Okay, no wee tinies are here. That's right, they're hiding under the pews. It is school break, so we are running alternate programming for our kids this weekend. Friends, before we enter into our greeting one another, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to our guests and those who are sitting on our chancel today. We have quite a crowd on the chancel this morning. Hiding behind our mock-up pulpit, we have with us the Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson and Andrea Lerner, who are both regional life consultants from the, I want to say Metro New York region because I've been part of Metro so long, but it's the Central Eastern region now of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We are so privileged to have their presence and ministry with us today. They've had long careers and multiple titles here in what was Metro New York and now is Central East region. So you may know them from all different roles and ways that you've interacted with them, but they're preaching for us today, and we're delighted to have them. They've come to be with us and to support the work of our congregation and the work of our Committee on Ministry, which is chaired by Vince Kimienti, who I know many of you know, hiding over here. Vince and the other members of the Committee on Ministry who will be participating in today's service have a program this afternoon to help us as a congregation delve more deeply into our covenant, our congregational covenant, to live well that covenant and to stay in covenant even when life is a little bumpy, because it's easy to fall out of covenant. So we're going to work on that together today in worship and then in the months ahead with our Committee on Ministry. Friends, I invite you now to take a moment to greet those closest to you. Please introduce yourself to those you don't know.
Good morning.
For our opening words by Richard S. Gilbert. By our presence here with one another, hearing the harmony that is the music of the spheres, may some of the harshness and the discord of our human lives be transmuted into music.
A new song in our hearts may there be, and a new harmony in our beings, so that we shall return to our several duties with fresh courage and eagerness and with rejoicing.
Each morning, we must hold out to the chalice of our being, to receive, to carry, and to give back.
Please join with me in singing hymn number 323 in the gray hymnal, Break Not the Circle.
Break
invite you now to join in reciting our words of affirmation and singing our song of affirmation, which are both printed in your order of service. Oh, and on the screen. Love that. Now we can all see it. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need. This do we affirm and covenant with each other. You may be seated.
Why are we here? But to create. For each of us has something of themselves to dedicate. O universe, take away the lie that there is nothing I can give. The offering for the work of this congregation in helping us to know how best to live will now be received. We invite the ushers to come forward.
Good morning. This morning's reading is A Covenant Invites Relationship by Lisa Ward, and it will be read by members of the Committee on Ministry. A covenant is not a definition of a relationship. It is the framework for our relating. A covenant leaves room for chance and change. It is humble toward evolution. It claims, I will abide with you in this common endeavor. Be present as best I can in our becoming. This calls for a level of trust, courage, and sacrifice that needs to be nurtured, renewed, and affirmed on a regular basis.
A creed creates a static truth, something that does not incorporate new sights and realities. A covenant is a dance of co-creation, keeping in step with one another in the flow of our lives.
A creed seeks uniformity and a unison voice. A covenant seeks harmony and a shared voice. Sometimes we may arrive at a unison, but not required. A creed gives authority to the statement. A covenant gives authority to the shared intention.
A creed creates an us and a them. A covenant invites relationship. A creed is a prescription that must be relied upon. A covenant relies on the treasures of shared truth. The overall trust within this covenant is truth, something which no one person can fully see, yet something which each and every person can come to know in glimpses, in another's story, in epiphanies.
Truth is ever changing in our seeking to understand. Because of our limited perspectives, we grow into a deeper sense of the meaning of all things when we take our journeys seriously with full heart and mind.
The courage within this covenant is in the acceptance and celebration of life, with all of its challenges, pain, ironies, and joys. And the sacrifice within this covenant is in the letting go of dogma, of assumptions, of control, and giving over to a greater wisdom which comes to us in bits and pieces.
The task of this covenant is to take responsibility for the freedom we espouse. We know that we are interconnected and that what we do creates ripples of hope or despair, of affirmation or negation. What we do with and for one another is powerful and beyond our imagining. We have a gift for the congregation because a big reason why we are here is to create beloved community, to be there for each other in peace and love. In order to do this, we need the skills. The Committee on Ministry is learning those skills and have the heart to do that with you. We ask that you please be in contact with us to get to know us so that in times of difficulty with each other, with anyone in the congregation, that we may be able to work together to resolve any conflict and, more importantly, to prevent them from happening. Will the ushers please come forward and give the gift that we have created for you.
I invite you to join you to a spirit of prayer. We come before you, O God of many names, to praise you for voices. We give you thanks for the voices of birds and all your outlandish, noisy creatures who remind us that truth is not always expressed in words. We give you thanks for the voices of children who remind us what joy feels like, and for adult voices who remind us that none of us need ever grow too old for joy. We give you thanks for whispering voices, hushed with emotion, with awe, with fear or sorrow, remorse, Voices that remind us how vulnerable, exposed, helpless we sometimes feel and sometimes need to feel. We give you thanks for comforting voices that soothe us in our pain, that speak to us when we are facing injury, illness, separation, or death, and remind us that we are never abandoned, even when we are alone. We give you thanks for familiar voices, sisters and brothers, friends and lovers, husbands and wives, sons and daughters, voices we know better than our own, voices that remind us that we are members one of another. We give you thanks, albeit reluctantly, for strident voices that irritate us, and for a country and a world in which differences of opinion and viewpoint will someday be tolerated and honored. We ask that your presence and power be with those whose voices have been silenced through the coercion of threats, intimidation and torture, or the disempowerment of poverty, discrimination, and despair in the face of a lifetime of shattered dreams. We give you thanks for those bold, prophetic voices of judgment and hope that keep us vacillating between despair and assurance, and remind us that our lives are lived in the tension between these two realities. And finally, we give you thanks for our own voices, spectacularly diverse instruments of praise and prophecy, of laughter and love, of candor and comfort. O God, out of your gracious love, grant us two gifts this week: courage, a readiness to give voice to truth, and wisdom, a clear vision of truth to voice. This prayer we offer to you, God of many names, the source of all courage and wisdom. So may it be. Shalom. Blessed be, Insha'Allah. Aho Shanti. Amen.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. While they were passing out the cards, we were listening to one of my favorite hymns, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. And of course, it's never possible to forestall or pain or discomfort, but it's what we do in response that defines us. So I have seen several versions of a cartoon which shows the unfortunate result of a traffic altercation, either a person laid up in the hospital or even a tombstone inscribed with, "But I had the right of way." It's all too human to want to be right, to insist that we are right in the face of disagreement. It takes introspection and patience to stop, take a breath, and try to look at things from other perspectives. Without that perspective, we often do damage to our relationships, our organizations, and ourselves. I remember an experience that gave me a path to understanding that my way of thinking was one that I had actually chosen, not that I was right. So think for a moment of a disappointment, a disagreement, or an unhappy relationship, and review in your mind the reason why things are that way. Perhaps your brother got a treasured antique from your parents' home. You think they may have loved him more, or he actively campaigned to shut you out. Take a moment and frame such a situation in your mind. I'll give you a minute. So some of you may be feeling a little discomfort, revisiting some disagreement. Your emotions get a little high. You think, why did it go that way? It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. Okay, so now let's create the fairy tale version of that situation. Rewrite it as a fairy tale. Is there a wizard? A curse? A fairy godmother is going to swoop in at the moment, help? Now, what's the mystery novel version? The sci-fi version? It's all aliens. The romantic novel version. So you can see that you created a scenario from your own perspective, and you could have chosen one of those others just as easily. So now what actually happened without interpretation? Your brother got the Victrola and you got the clock. Didn't say anything about your parents' motives, who loved who more, or any nefarious purposes. So this experiment, this exercise taught me that I had wound a story about what really happened to suit my particular prejudices, and it always made me the protagonist of the story. And my story wasn't taking other perspectives into consideration, and it wasn't motivating me to reach out to others to heal relationships. As our quartet so beautifully sang this morning, take away the rage that tells me I am always right. So the climate in our nation is not helping. There's very little dialogue and lots of reactive hostility in the news every single day. That can't help but spill over into our conversation and our relationships. We are fortunate that our UU congregational life has its basis in covenant and in mission. This foundation gives us a basis from which to deeply and actively listen to one another, as well as a path to find our way back into right relationship when things go astray. Covenants are three things. They're sacred because we promise, they're impossible because we're human, and the best part is that we can recreate them and get back into relationship. They're renewable. So the UUA website tells us the following. Conflicts can be scary when they threaten to rupture or divide our precious community connections and relationships with one another, and we often seek help to resolve these issues. Yet we've learned that conflicts actually present great opportunities for building community by examining together what we value and clarifying our purpose and our mission as a community. They simply arise naturally because of the fact that we are different from one another. As Unitarian Universalists, we honor and celebrate difference, but often struggle with how to negotiate these differences when it comes to making decisions. So congregational growth, perspectives on ministry, staffing decisions, budgetary issues, they all provoke sometimes wildly varying viewpoints. It would be strange if we didn't have conflicts about important issues. So here are a few suggestions that your UUA staff have found to be helpful. Number one, manage your own anxiety. As scary as conflicts may be, if our fears and anxiety overtake us, we will not be effective in helping our congregation manage conflict. It's not that you shouldn't allow yourself to feel your emotions, but it's important to find a way to manage them so there is maximum ability for everyone to feel some openness in expressing their concerns without overwrought feelings shutting things down. Try to find the opportunity in the conflict. What is it that all of us need to learn about what is important to us? Ask broad and deep questions in an open and deliberate way to get unstuck. Understand that a particular issue is always part of a larger emotional system operating in a community. Rarely is a conflict only about a particular issue or a particular person, as much as it may seem that way at the time. Find help from your Committee on Ministries in uncovering the deeper concerns at play without scapegoating a particular person or engaging in the fantasy that you alone can solve the problem. Build safety into your communal interactions. Create congregational or group covenants. Every group should have a covenant in which you can name behaviors that might get in the way of healthy exchange and deep dialogue. Using techniques such as listening circles, appreciative inquiry, and storytelling exercises can build community in the face of conflict. And above all, ask for help. Call your UUA regional staff, utilize outside facilitators, and whenever possible, do that so that you can gain the largest possible perspective on what's happening. We are happy to help. Thank you.
That was Andrea. I'm Hope. Words from our opening this morning. For me, being in beloved community means that we meet on holy ground where lives touch, where hope stirs, where love is an entry point. One of my personal passions is a transformation of relationships, whether personal, interpersonal, congregational, or whatever, so that health abounds And covenant, when broken, can be restored. When we run into problems with one person or another, with one group or another, one idea or another, we often complain that, hey, we didn't join our religious communities with the expectation of having to deal with conflict. I didn't come here to have battles and issues that I have at work every week, at school, or even at home. This is my religious home. I don't need this. And then you get to step in. Friends, the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock is, as is every such organization, a microcosm of life, of the real world. Conflict flourishes everywhere. It's natural, and it exists in each and every single congregation. You are not alone. It's an offer for opportunity for growth and change. The goal is to develop a keen awareness and understanding of conflict so that it can be diffused before it blows up into a major crisis. Does anyone know the kind of thing I'm talking about? But you see, congregations, persons in congregations, often miss the cues. We ignore those patterns of behavior that lead to conflict and escalates into crisis level. I want you to know that I have a twin sister. Some of you know her, Dr. Janice Marie Johnson. She's the UUA's co-director of ministries and faith development. She and I have been around for a long time. We each have a daughter who's 30 years old. Do the math. Jane knows our daughters. As does Lisa, because they're about the same age. All right. And you know what? With the way we know each other so well, we often surprise each other, particularly when conflict arises between us. We so often experience the same situation with two different perspectives. And we experience what we experience in ways that the other just can't understand. OMG, she's a sister from another planet. What is she talking about? But over the years, we've learned a lot. And though the cornerstone of our relationship is celebrating joy and the good times, there are times when we have to focus on managing conflict, which is the title of today's service. There have been shifts in the field of conflict over the past years that I believe are important for you to know about and to consider as you move forward. What began back in the day as conflict resolution, over time has turned into conflict management. And it's now morphed into conflict transformation. This shows the movement from dealing with conflict from what was often a right, wrong, good, bad, black, white perspective to finding a way to manage the conflict, to diffuse it, and to live with it. But now, our efforts are under the umbrella of conflict transformation. So we offer an invitation for all sides to work together to transform that conflict into something that all can benefit from and work with. John Paul Lederach, one of the pioneers of the movement of conflict transformation, reminds us that conflict is normal. normal in human relationships. And conflict is a motor of change, not a matter of change, but a motor of change. Transformation provides a clear and important vision because it brings into focus the horizon toward which we journey, the building of healthy relationships and healthy communities. And this goal requires real change in our current ways of relating. Being a part of a community means having an authentic sense of responsibility. And at the same time, it means having a strong sense of ownership. Please note, this is not the kind of ownership that means that you are the only one in charge or the only one whose agenda counts. No, it's about a change of heart that leads to an invitation. Let's try something new. Let's embrace partnership. What about shared leadership? What could that look like? It means being accountable to the entire community or congregation, not because you have to, but because you want to. So, remembering that we've moved over the years from managing conflict to resolving conflict, remember, managing presumes that the conflict is still there and will continue to be there. Well, the focus shifted to making the conflict go away, not shoving it under a carpet, but putting the focus on compromise, going for the win-win, and so on. And with time, with the recognition that that was not enough either. So that's part of the reason for the shift to transforming conflict. Not just managing it, not just resolving it, but transforming it into something that is new, positive, and even at times, at the best of times, better than anything you might have imagined. An important lesson. There's no one size fits all when dealing with conflict. Each situation needs a different approach. You need to understand what the conflict is really all about. That takes very often a period of slowing down so that you can move from reaction to discernment. And from there, always consider ways to avoid high-level conflict crises. Incorporate in your discernment the themes of forgiveness, reconciliation, and try some restorative practices. Always look at the patterns of behavior around us, amongst us. How are your lines of communication? One of the ways many congregations fail is in stating the obvious. We spend time, we spend energy, we spin our wheels thinking that we're dealing with the conflict that we see. This relates a little bit to what Andrea was speaking about. But we're not even willing to name the core issues. That's what I call the elephant in the room, right there, smack in front of us. And we're having a conflict about coffee, fairly traded coffee. Should we have flavors or not? Should we have decaf or not? Soy milk, and then we get into all of that stuff. But the real deal is the time that the coffee is served, or something like that. The elephant in the room so often is right there. And we spend time arguing, fighting with each other about the wrong thing. Within community, poor communication disenfranchises the very best of intentions. So name that elephant, whatever it is. Move from a quick fix approach to a long-term, ongoing transformative process. You know what? And I've read your covenant, and I love it. But guess what? Writing up a covenant or pulling it out when there's a huge crisis doesn't work, because the words to the covenant at that moment don't mean the same thing for everyone in the room. So use that. Use it wisely, but not when there's a huge crisis. Not only when there's a huge crisis. It is a great tool, something wonderful to have, but you still have to look at and name that elephant. And when you call on your covenant, it's got to be from the heart, not just, which is why we chose that reading about a covenant as opposed to a creed. And last thought, one key to the success in dealing with conflict is acknowledging those differences that Andrea mentioned that often create or perpetuate conflict. Look at the power dynamics. When you are looking at conflict, please look at the power dynamics. I might be having a problem with a president of a congregation, just for argument's sake. Let's say I'm the minister. Then the board gets involved. And there are power dynamics at play. And then the staff gets involved. And by the way, who is in charge of the staff? And then perhaps a minister and the president have further conflict because there are two different understandings of the roles. So I just say, always consider the power dynamics, gender, ethnicity, race, all of those things matter when we are engaged in conflict one with another. So how do you begin? You have a committee on ministry sitting right here. You have Vince as chair. You have your ministers, Jennifer and Ned and Natalie, who's not here today. You have Andrea, you have Hope. We recognize, all of us, that there are many different areas of expertise. Allow all of us to assist you in finding good resources. Remember, no one person, not the ministers, not the Committee on Ministry, no one entity can do this work alone. Transformation, true transformation of conflict, needs the support of each and every one of you, if it is to be real. Take that sense of ownership, take that sense of responsibility seriously, and remember, after discernment, that there are times when we each just have to do what must be done. I invite you now to listen to our closing hymn, Do What Must Be Done, by Greg Greenway. It's one of my favorite songs. And when so moved, please join us in song, in dance, and in spirit. Blessed be.
Oh, well, I learned as a child there's two ways to see the world as it is and the way it could be. Now, some people say that's just not my problem. Some people do what must be done. They see the hole in the fabric that must be sewn. They see the way blockaded and they roll back the stone. They see the day beyond the horizon and they do what must be done. Yes, some people do what must be done. Well, they do what must be done. They see the day beyond the horizon and they do what must be done. Now I've seen the toll taken, the tears that were shed. I've seen the journey started and the ripples spread. Some people say that's just not my problem. Some people do what must be done. Now they see the hole in the fabric that must be sewn. They see the way blockaded and they roll back the stone. They see the day beyond the horizon and they do what must be done. Yes, some people do what must be done. Well, they do what must be done. They see the day beyond the horizon and they do what must be done. Yes, some people do what must be done. Well, they do what must be done. They see the day beyond the horizon and they do what must be done. Oh, they see the day beyond the horizon and they do what must be done. Oh, they see the day beyond the horizon and they do what must be done.
Please be seated. As we leave this community of the Spirit, may we remember the difficult lesson that each day offers more than we can do. Therefore, may we learn to separate that which matters most from that which matters least. May we do what must be done, postpone what does not, and be at peace with what we can be and do. Amen.